Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with our guest host, Cory. Cory, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Luki. How you doing?
So Cory comes to us with a background in business, food services, wellness, and mental education. So what would you say that you're up to these days?
The mental gym. All of my work is focused on the mental gym. Just like we have gyms for our bodies, the mental gym is for your mind. We combine proactive well-being with personal leadership development and real human and team connection. So it's a really great and exciting way to work on yourself and show up at your best where it matters most.
Sure. And I think that's why we originally got connected, because you have a mental gym, I have a career gym, but obviously you didn't start like that at the get-go. So I'd love to rewind and go back in time and talk a little bit about Cory as a kid. So what was Cory like growing up, or some early fond childhood memories that you had?
Yeah, so many. I really enjoyed my childhood. I would say life wasn't easy growing up, but I had a lot of fun. My parents were great. They were very supportive. Went through some personal challenges and family challenges and so on. But what I always remember as a kid feeling like I've got all this potential and I don't know what to do with it. And I don't know what direction to point myself in. And I don't know what I need to learn. And I don't know who I can trust to guide me along the way. But even from a young age, I remember feeling a little bit frustrated with school, in that school kind of helps you be fine, but not how to show up at your best, not how to impact lives, not how to, live a great life and that sort of thing. And so I always remember that. So I always thought differently. I was always challenging things and asking questions about everything. I want to know why we think and make decisions the way we do. I couldn't stand it when I'd hear the answer over and over and over again that, that's just the way you do it. That's the way things are always have always been done. I'm like, no, that's not good enough for me. So that was a lot of me growing up. I played a lot of hockey. I had great friends, like normal childhood, but that always stood out to me.
Sounds good. I'd love if you shared a little bit about kind of the experience growing up and in school. Like, were you the studious kid and like straight A's? It sounds like you were probably a little bit more the troublemaker if you're always asking, why is it like that?
I wasn't a troublemaker. I was actually a super clean cut, really good kid. I didn't get into any trouble. In fact, there was a time in my life, in my teenage years, where my friends would call me Mr. Clean, because I wouldn't I didn't smoke, I wouldn't drink, I didn't do drugs, like nothing. But yeah, I was a good student. I wasn't like top student. I will admit that I wasn't the hardest working student.
Sure.
So I kind of did just enough to get the grades that I needed, kind of like maintain like a low A average kind of thing. But I wasn't one of those people who just wanted to like study all the time and get 100 and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'd love if you share a little bit about, so you know that you have all this potential and you're kind of just skirting by, right? Like on the high level, but you decide to go and get a degree in business, I assume. So what was that process, decision-making process like? Because you have all this untapped potential and you want to focus it into business, or were there like other motives in there?
I didn't really know. What I knew was that I wanted to go in a direction. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe I'd go to business school or law school or that sort of thing. I just thought that getting an education in business was going to open more opportunity for me. Okay. I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, although I thought that was probably something that might be in my future. And yeah, I went to business and I was interested in psychology as well. And so I was really paying more attention to psych at the time. And yeah, I think like a lot of us in life, like just trying to figure yourself out and trying to figure life out and trying to figure out what direction you want to point yourself in and who you want to be in this world, like really just trying to explore and find some answers.
Yeah. And I love if you shared a little bit of some of the influence along the way. Was there mom and dad that was kind of guiding you along the way, like an uncle, cousin, or friend or someone that you met? Or is it really just you trying to figure things out and coming up with a direction for yourself?
My dad was a big figure in my life growing up. He always knew that potential in me. And so he would challenge me to think differently. And he was very big on that. Like, for example, and I love this is one of my favorite things. My dad was a lawyer and a very bright guy. And he used to come home at the dinner table every night and he would give me a situation. It could be a legal scenario or something going on in the world. And he'd just tell me like, what do you think about this? Or he'd ask me, what do you think about this? And I'd have to come up with an argument or a point of view and kind of present my case. And he'd always do the same thing. He'd say something like, that makes a lot of sense. You really put a lot of thought into that. But what about this? And he would just play devil's advocate with me all the time and really stretching me to think differently. And so my dad was, I think, someone who I felt understood me, which was really important to me. I think all of us we just kind of want to feel like we're understood and that somebody gets us.
For sure.
So he was great for that. And I remember too that my dad was encouraging, but he didn't push me. So he's like, yeah, if you want to go in this direction, great. But he never really pushed me to do anything. And he wasn't easily impressed, I think, because he kind of maybe expected a lot out of me. So I'd accomplish something and be like, yeah, that's great. Like, good for you, but not like overdo it kind of thing. And I actually appreciated that, like, don't make too big a deal out of this. It's not that big a deal. It's just another nice step. And so I think I appreciate that my parents gave me the space to learn my own thing, and they were there to guide me when I needed, but certainly weren't overbearing or pushy or anything like that. And I think that when you give people space to figure out their own stuff, they tend to figure it out a lot faster than telling them, here's the answer to everything.
For sure. Yeah, there's a generation of kind of spoon-fed kids where they have, I heard like the helicopter parents, and I've heard like the bulldozer parents where they just kind of pave the way for their kids, and they wonder why they can't do more than they are supposed to.
There are a lot of fragile people in the world because of that, right? They don't have the resilience skills, they don't have grit, they don't have self-confidence because they were pretty much set up to fail instead of succeed, right?
Yeah. And I love that you go into the transition. So you're doing your business degree, taking a look at psychology, and then you graduate and you end up like in food services. Like, was that a natural progression? Was there some serendipity that happened, or like a conscious decision, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was a weird time in my life. I was getting really frustrated with school because in my very first year in the business program, I learned that a lot of the things that I wanted to learn about entrepreneuring and investment and things like that weren't things that I was going to learn in school. Okay. And I remember going to like I don't know, it was one of my profs or maybe one of the heads of the business department. I was like, where am I going to learn this stuff? Yeah. This is what I came here to learn. And they said, well, you're really not going to learn that here. If that's stuff you're going to learn in the real world. And so you'd be better off having a mentor or something like that. So that was a bit discouraging to me. But it was also a time in my life where, and this is actually where mental health and well-being was really kind of front and center for me, was my mom suffered from mental illness. And, people didn't talk about it then, and there was a huge stigma about it. Now things are getting better. There's still a lot of room to grow in that area, but it was a tough time. My mom's situation was getting worse and worse. And when I was in university, my mom took her own life.
Oh, no.
And it was a really difficult time, and it was heartbreaking, and it was scary because I thought it was genetic maybe, and that could be coming for me. That really began my whole journey into being proactive with my mental well-being, because I recognized you can either cross your fingers and hope everything works out, which is just a terrible strategy. Right. You can be reactive, which is what most people tend to do, is wait until things get bad or too hard to deal with, and then they try to deal with it reactively. Which again, I don't believe that's the best approach. Or you can be proactive. And that's what I started to do, is just a little bit at a time, learning and integrating these essential tools, skills, habits, mindset to be mentally fit for optimal well-being and also to realize my personal potential. So that was a big part of that. And it was really, again, just like one small adjustment at a time, one small manageable improvement at a time. And it really creates this snowballing effect, this compounding effect of all these little changes that add up, which is really cool. To answer your question though about the restaurant business, or getting into that, I got a summer job serving tables in university. I enjoyed it. And then I started bartending, and then I started managing a restaurant, and I was really good at making money for other people. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Okay. And I was asking myself, I had ambition. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I said, I know this business now, and I like it, and I'm really good at it. Why not just go into business for myself? And so that's what I did, and had my own place for a while, and it was a great run. I really enjoyed it.
That's
but
awesome.
it wasn't it. It wasn't the end all for me.
For sure. So first of all, I want to acknowledge and condolences for your loss, and that
Thank you.
must have been a trying time. But it sounds like that you made the most of it. Again, some people will break down, but you're able to build those small, different little things and turn your life into something that was productive and helpful. I'd love if you shared a little bit about that, like figuring it out. Okay, it seemed like a natural progression. So taking a job, bartending, and then
Sure.
deciding to own a pub like that's not necessarily natural. Can you walk us through a little bit about that transition, and then to the other food services adventures along the way, I'll call them?
Yeah, I mean, that part of it was just like I needed to go do something and do something that was bigger.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what it was, but again, that made a lot of sense to me. I didn't have much money. I didn't know how I was going to buy a pub or a restaurant or a bar or anything like that, or build one. I was fortunate, got creative in getting some loans and some access to capital, and taking a lot of chances, really taking some big risks. But I do believe it's important to bet on yourself and believe in yourself. And when you know something's the right move or the right decision to make, even if it's scary, you got to make it. In fact, I remember at that time, a good friend of mine was saying, aren't you scared about doing this? Like, you're taking on a big loan. If it doesn't work out, you're going to be in huge debt and pay it off for a long time. And I remember this pub that I was trying to buy here was pretty run down and needed a lot of work. It wasn't a great business or anything like that, but I thought it had a lot of potential.
Right.
I thought I could turn it around and clean things up. And he was like, this is what you're buying. Like, what if this doesn't work out? Aren't you scared?
Yeah.
And I remember I thought about it for maybe 2 seconds. And then I said to him, well, yeah, of course I'm scared. Like, all of that scares me. But when I think of the alternative, which is not believing in yourself, not betting on yourself, not taking your shot when you believe deep down this is the right thing to do, and then having the regret, that what if kind of thing, I mean, that idea terrifies me.
Right.
So yes, this one scares me, but this one terrifies me. So it's a no-brainer. I gotta take my shot.
Yeah.
And it worked out great. It was a great run, built up that business quite quickly. Paid off all the loans within 2 years, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome. So sounds like things turned out. I'm wondering if you can share, how did you know? Like, so it seems like that you had this belief in yourself. Did that come naturally, or was it circumstantial, or was there something in that moment that said, you know what, I just got to bet out on myself? Is there something to that really gave you that knowing and that belief?
Yeah, so I live by a life philosophy I call Live Your 10. And it's a big part of what we teach people in the mental gym, and how we help people really show up at their best. And in a real nutshell, you can just think of it as on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is you showing up at your worst and living your worst life, and 10 is you showing up at your best and living your best life. And you really do get to choose anywhere on that scale you want to be. And so it never made sense to me to choose 6 or 7, right? Which is really, I mean, most people live their lives right around like a 5 or a 6. That's just like the big meaty part of that bell curve is that 5 or 6. And then sure, you have some people like 7, maybe some 8s, but 10 is where I want it to be. Yeah. And when you're committed to living your life that way in that philosophy, when you're faced with some decisions, you can kind of clearly see that some of those decisions or some of those options are going to have the potential to help you stay on the path to 10 and create 10, and some of them won't. And it's not, you don't look at it like some of them are 10 decisions and some of them are like 7, 8, 6, 5. It's not that. It's kind of like it's 10 or it's just not 10.
Right.
And so when you have a decision in front of you, that it doesn't need to be the end all be all. It's more just the path. Do you stay on the path to living your 10? You see the decisions that are in front of you. You don't get to live your 10 by choosing 6 or by choosing 7 or by choosing anything that's not 10.
Right. You
live your 10 by choosing 10. And so as much as I did have some confidence in myself in some parts of life, I had some good things, I think, going for me. And I wasn't confident in everything for sure, but there were, confident in some things. And I believed in my ability to learn and grow and succeed where I wanted to succeed. I also follow a set of rules in life, and over the years, those rules have developed and evolved, and there's more and more to it. But even just following that rule helps you make those decisions. And so you make the decision, even if it's scary. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And would you be able to pinpoint, or maybe not, like where did you get that philosophy from? Because it seems like a very beneficial one for folks to adopt. Is that something that came from parents, or is just one day walking in the woods, you had this epiphany and realized, yeah, you know what, I need to live my 10?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. It was very shortly after my mom passed away, and I was in a pretty low place, and she clearly was in a low place, the lowest place you could be in. And it's funny when you're kind of living your normal life, you just take a lot of things for granted. You're just kind of in this mode. You're running on autopilot, right? You're just going through the motions in life. And when you're out of that mode, it gives you perspective. So it's kind of like hot doesn't mean anything without cold. Light doesn't mean anything without dark, right? And so my normal life, when I was kind of pulled out of it into this situation where I was in a low place and I wasn't feeling good at all, and I was contemplating life and all that, that's when I first recognized this scale from 1 to 10. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm at a 2, right? Maybe before I was at 6, 7, whatever, but now I feel like I'm at a 2. And that's when I just started thinking to myself, well, if this is the worst it can get, then what's the best it can get? If there's a worst, there has to be a best. That just makes sense to me. I'm not a physics major, but like that makes sense. And so I said, well, what does that look like? What does that mean? What is 10? And for me at the time, the only thing I could really come up with was happiness and fulfillment. In fact, at the time, I didn't even think about fulfillment. I just thought of happiness and fulfillment as the same thing. But
sure,
I just said, I got to be happy in life. If you're not happy in life, then what are you doing?
Yeah,
you can have money and a nice car and a great business and a great title. If you're not happy, what are you doing it for? So that became very clear to me, and I started making my decision through that. My decisions and pretty much every decision in my life to date goes through that filter.
That's amazing. So a lot of folks out there need to recognize what is happiness for them, what is fulfillment for them. And you were able to recognize during that time where there is that kind of yin and yang, the opposites, the 1 versus the 10. And if you had a choice, why not pick 10 versus choosing?
You have a choice.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Like, again, I don't know how much sense does it make to pick 6 or 7 or even 8.
Yeah.
Just choose 10.
Yeah. And I find that that's what most folks' superpower is choice. Like a lot of folks don't believe they have that choice, right? But at any given day, you can choose something different. Like a lot of folks, you can, I don't know, go to the airport and head to another country, right?
Yeah.
And go anywhere you want. Obviously, make sure you have your passport and blah, 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 blah. But like there's so many different things. And yes, there are consequences to each, pros and cons, but choice is definitely a superpower. Absolutely. If you can share a little bit about that transition. So you're running food services, this great business, you paid off all your debts and things like that. Then you go into consulting and you're probably doing well for yourself there. And then you decide to go on this wellness path and coaching and greatness and things like that. How does that transition happen?
Yeah, so there was a gap in between those. When I sold my business, and it was weird. It was like I wasn't one of those people who hated going to work. I really enjoyed going to work. I had a great team. I had a great business. I wasn't working like long, hard hours at that point because, again, I had a great team in place. And but I recognized essentially that on this scale from 1 to 10, that I was kind of topping out at kind of like that 7-ish range. And I hadn't figured out yet what's the difference between 7 and 10.
Right.
And I just felt like I hit a ceiling there and it was time to move on. So I sold my business, and people were like, what are you doing? You put all this time, this effort into building this thing up. And why would you do that? But to me, it was just time to move on. And so, but when I did that, I didn't have a plan. It's not like I was like, I'm selling this to go then do this other thing instead.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I ended up taking time off. I traveled. I learned how to golf, like things like that, just trying to like figure it out. And it came to me really this kind of light bulb moment when I recognized how much I wanted to help people. And how much realizing my personal potential was so important to me, and how it is to other people as well. How important great mental well-being is to that process, that you can't have one without the other. Taking a very proactive approach to it, that kind of good to great approach.
Right.
And that all just started coming together a little bit at a time. I had always been developing this kind of system of thinking and decision-making and showing up in life for my own personal benefit. And as I started to share with other people and seeing the benefit in their lives, I started taking it more seriously. I actually had a mentor of mine who was in my ear about it a lot, saying like, you don't think like other people do. You have to start sharing this with people. And I kind of brushed it off for a while, but everything changed when my first son was born. I became a dad, and I remember in the delivery room getting smacked in the face with this feeling of, I got to try to make the world a better place for my kids to grow up in, right? And it's such a surreal feeling. And I realized that I had something here that could help and that could change lives. And so I remember I started with high school students. I started this work working with high potential high school students who were leaders, who wanted to show up in life the way that I wanted to show up in life, and helping them really ascend to that next great level in their life was really exciting. And then naturally I just get to work with educators, because you're around students a lot, and then you're around educators, so you work with educators. And then I started working with some athletes and athletic teams, and then business people, business leaders, teams, organizations, and it just kind of all flowed. And I was always looking for the kind of the better way of sharing this with people. And then one day I was right in the middle of a CrossFit class, and I really always enjoyed that group fitness model where you're showing up for each other, you're supporting each other, you're not judging, it's just you're encouraging, and it helps everybody be better and feel like you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And so I was right in the middle of a class one day, and I just kind of stopped this light bulb. I had this light bulb moment that we have these gyms for our bodies. Why aren't we doing this for our minds? And that's really what started the mental gym shortly after that.
That's amazing, and a lot to unpack in there. What I took from it is, for folks that are trying to figure moments or what they want to do, give yourself some time, right? So learn to golf, learn to whatever, gain some experiences. But oftentimes when you're on called the hamster wheel of life, it's hard to think outside. So maybe it's similar to that previous epiphany where being able to put yourself kind of outside the moment and not be in the day-to-day grind was helpful as well.
So helpful.
Or go out there and have a kid, right? Because that might smack you into a realization to help make the world a better place. So
don't have kids for that reason.
Well, for sure, yeah. I only say that in jest, but oftentimes like having someone else to take care of in the world does change your perspective. And I'm glad that you adopted that as wanting to make the world a better place. And sometimes inspiration comes from something like a CrossFit gym, just going to exercise and work out, and things like the mental gym come out of that.
Yeah, I want to add to that something you said about just creating space to figure things out.
Yeah.
It's so important to do that, not just to figure out big things, but like day to day. I love going for walks in nature. I do it in the middle of the workday. I consider it a part of my workday because of the mental clarity that it creates. I get these like mental downloads. I figure things out. I work through problems. I understand things on a much higher and clearer level. And then I can take that back and do better work and show up better for my clients and for my family and for myself. We've been trained to think that it's all about hustle culture. Go, 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 grind, 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 burnout. That's what success means. I'm sorry. I very much disagree with that. That's not going to help you live your 10. Yeah. We work hard for sure, but that's not going to help you live your 10. And we don't think about taking care of ourselves the way we need to as a performance advantage. We think of it as a luxury. Well, if I have time, I'll do it. Like, no. It's the opposite of that. If you want to show up and perform at your best, you've got to be taking care of yourself. You got to prioritize your well-being. Like I meditate every single morning. I exercise. I prioritize my sleep. I watch what I eat. All of these things. I go for these walks in nature because it helps me perform at a higher level. Yeah. Right. And I think that we need to start understanding that more. The link between well-being, rest, and performance is huge.
Yeah. I love that. Everything in there is something that I hopefully do myself on a regular basis, but sometimes I miss here and there. But the importance of self-care is something that I definitely want to highlight that you mentioned. It's kind of that airline analogy where before you take care of others, put your mask on first, right? Absolutely. So take that time to do that walk, because if you're a little bit less stressed for that meeting or that time with your kids or your significant other or whatever, that just helps things on a day-to-day basis. And if it means taking a couple of minutes, couple of hours for meditation, things that for those that don't feel they have the time, what's the alternative? That you burn out and you get frustrated at everybody else. So at that point, you will have lots of time because you'll be laid out in bed and
Right.
can only just think about and then maybe meditate and take care of your health and things like that. So I love everything that you said.
Yeah. Again, I think this just comes down to the difference between, do you want to show up at a 5 or do you want to show up at your 10?
Yeah.
Right. And the ripple, we're all creating a ripple effect one way or another. We have people in our lives, in our families, people that we work with, our teams, the teams that we lead. We have an impact on people. And so that impact can either be a 5 impact, a 6 impact, it can be a 10.
Yeah.
And you've got to choose that. And I hear people a lot of the time who are responsible for other people, team leaders, CEOs, VPs, all this sort of thing, and parents as well, like just people who have got a lot of things on their plate and they're trying to juggle all these things and all these responsibilities and all these people who count on them. And they say, well, I can't take time for myself,
right,
to work on myself. And I would say to them, you cannot afford not to take time for yourself to work on yourself.
For sure.
Because if you want to show up at your best for them, you need to be able to give them your best.
Yeah.
And it's no good if you're running on like a half a tank of gas all the time.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to struggle through another day. Maybe not you may not be burnt out yet, but you're burning.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to maintain that, like tread water. It's not the way we should be living.
Right. Definitely not a 10. And it kind of goes back to what you said before about choice. And as I kind of reflect a little bit, sounds a little bit about how you started, where you're just that kid that when someone said, well, that's just how it is. Well, is that how it is? Or did you make a choice to make that as it is? So that sounds amazing. And I love, as we kind of close off the podcast, if you could share a little bit of your SIWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier, for all the younger Corys that are out there, and any advice. So I know you shared a lot, I guess, over the course of this discussion, but if there's any that you want to overemphasize or any new ones that you want to introduce, what's some of the SIWIKE, the stuff you wish you knew earlier?
Yeah, something that really comes to mind is I feel like we all we all have this version of ourselves that we deep down believe we could be. We probably don't talk about it with anybody else, and we don't maybe explore it the way we need to. But if you've got this feeling like the kind of the rhythm of life isn't entirely matching up with your own rhythm, and you kind of got this there's this drum beat or something like that's your drum beat, you got to listen to that.
Yeah.
And you got to follow that. And I know how much pressure there is to be like everybody else, and how to choose career paths like everybody else, and make the same life choices as everyone else, and define success the same way that everybody else does. But I wish I could go back and tell younger Cory. I feel like I always knew this, that you gotta listen to your gut and follow your heart and really be committed to that. I feel like I always knew this, but I don't know that I always had the courage to live it or act on it, which was conflicting for me, right? It's like, this thing and you feel this thing, but can I really pull the trigger? Can I act on it? So I wish I knew just believe in yourself, that voice in your head or that feeling in your gut, that drumbeat is very real, and pay attention to it. That's a big one. And the other thing I think I wish I knew, similarly to that, is nobody's responsible for your life except you. Nobody's responsible for your happiness in life or your success in life, however you want to define it. Nobody's responsible for that except you. And so it is so easy to look around, and to your point, you said before about people feeling like they don't have choice. And it's so easy to say, here's why I'm not as happy as I want to be, or here are the reasons, or here are the people responsible. But no, it's all you. And when you can just embrace that, it's the most empowering feeling to know that you're the one who's in control of your life, and you get to dictate your path. Just own it, own your life and live your 10. I wish I knew that when I was younger too.
That's amazing. Again, so much to unpack in those words. What I took from it is, for the first one, about looking for that kind of voice in your head. Hopefully it's your voice and not some other weird voice.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, it's so tough in today's social media culture, where you're expected to do this and that. Everyone should be an entrepreneur, a TikToker, whatever, and sharing all their wisdom and stuff. But if that's not you, right, really take some time. Maybe it's going back to what you said about making some space, right? Taking some time to really reflect. Maybe it's finding mentors or other people that you aspire to be like, and having conversations with them. But really taking that time to explore you versus just doing it because you're supposed to or that's expected of you. I think that's definitely important. And I love what you said about nobody's responsible for your life except you, right? And then really it goes down to no one can make you happy other than yourself. So all this external validation that people are looking for, if I get that job, buy that car, whatever, then I'll be happy. It's like, well, no, you can be happy right now if you choose to. I'm reminded of a story where during the pandemic, we were having a Zoom birthday party, right? Then the kids were playing like bingo online. And one of my kids said, well, this is boring. I was like, well, is it boring, or are you choosing to make it boring? Because all the other kids are having fun, right? But you're not. And he's like, So maybe that happiness is really, as we mentioned before, like a choice, right? You choose happiness at any moment to have fun, to enjoy yourself, or to be bored, right? And be miserable, right? That's your choice too, right? So again, a lot of amazing things, and I would love to kind of deep dive in some of those other topics, probably for another episode.
Sure.
But as we kind of close off, I'd love if you shared some of the future aspirations. What can we look forward to hearing from Cory in the future? Maybe any projects, that sort of thing. And then where can folks reach out and connect with you if they want to do so?
Yeah, I love everything you said there, by the way. So I'm very excited about the mental gym. It's such just a great way to work on yourself, especially in a world where mental well-being is becoming more and more of a priority for people, for teams, for organizations, where people genuinely desire the ability to show up at their best and lead at their best and be happy and be fulfilled and have quality of life. So I'm really excited and really connect with each other as people, right? Not just as coworkers, but as people, as human beings. So I'm really excited to get to bring that to the world and be introducing that to more teams and organizations who are progressive, who are innovative, who want to lead the change and not just be champions of the status quo.
Yeah.
That's exciting as we continue to work more and more in that space. We get to have a bigger and bigger impact in that. So that's really exciting for us. Best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn, Cory Chadwick. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. Our website is mentalgymlife.com. You can check that out. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. Say hi.
Sounds good. And we'll definitely link all of that in the show notes. And I highly encourage folks and businesses who want to take the mental wellness of their employees to heart. And again, the more progressive ones are probably the ones that reach out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more on the progress of the mental gym. So thanks so much, Cory, for sharing your words of wisdom and nuggets of awesomeness from your journey. And hopefully we'll have you back on a future episode.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks, Cory.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.